Hello again, it's so nice to see you back, and today I thought we'll do a nice autumn scene in here with some nice golden colors, some trees and bushes around the lake. So let's get off immediately. I'm gonna start with a twinge brush and a little bit of yellow ochre. I have already covered the canvas with a thin even coat of liquid white and we're ready to go. So let's come up here. We're not using a lot of paint right now, and I just want to have a nice golden glow in the sky. Just use some little X's in here, and I want to reflect that in the water. I'm gonna add some more ochre, and we start from the bottom and work upwards. Try to make this bigger. There we go. This is a very simple and easy painting that you can do even if it is your first time painting. Alright. Now, without cleaning the brush, I'm gonna go into some alizarin crimson. Just a small amount of paint. And I'm gonna add the least little touch of phthalo blue. I want to make a nice purplish color here. A little bit more blue. And we brush mix this. And we come up here, and by the time we have this brush mixed, you can see the different varieties of color. You can see the crimson and the blue playing around. Always using crisscross strokes. Very nicely. And you make it as soft or as harsh as you like. We're gonna come down here with the same color, and let's add some water that fills the scene. We always start from the bottom and working upwards, and we want our strokes to be straight because we're gonna paint still water, and we work from the outside in here. Very easily done. And we come from here too, just using straight strokes. You fill this in nicely. Okay. Now I'm gonna take a clean and dry twinge brush, and we want to bring all this together. And we blend in here, so we do not know when one color stops and the other starts. And then very gently go across. Do the same in the water. We're saving this golden glow, and we are ready to take off. And now I'm gonna use the same brush actually. I'm gonna go into some dark sienna. Want to have some nice faraway trees. I'm gonna add some yellow ochre too. A little bit more. And I'm gonna take some titanium white too. So it's just sienna, ochre and white on the twinge brush. And I want to have some nice tree indications in here. And using just the corner of the brush, let's have some nice trees. Just some indications of faraway trees in here. Just here and there. A little bush maybe lives here. Let's have a big one in here. Goes outside the canvas. We do not know where he is. And you can do this with a 1-inch brush too, but this is much faster. Another nice one lives here. using some arms. And let's make this a little bit bigger. Gonna add more color, sienna, yellow ochre and white. And let's come up here. Can you see how nice it is? And maybe there is another one in here. And now by the time we're having a lake down here, let's fill this in. I wanted to have some reflections, so we just take some color and reflect this. And we're trying to make the reflection of this tree the same length, and make sure you pull straight down. A little bit more paint. Make sure you pull straight down. Now I'm gonna take another clean and dry pinch brush and let's blend this. Pull. Same way you did earlier. And then very, very gently go across. And we have a nice water effect. Now I'm gonna take a liner brush. This is a script liner brush. I'm gonna go into some dark sienna. Take lots of paint thinner. Make this paint very, very thin. We want this to flow in our palette. Bring the brush to a nice sharp point. And let's paint some nice tree trunks. And if your paint won't stick, just add a little bit of paint thinner. A very nice tree trunk lives here. And you decide the shape and the width of these. Just here and there. Some random sticks around here. And I like this one. This is a big, strong tree. Alright. And now I want to put some foliage in here. I'm gonna use the 1-inch brush today for the highlights. I'm gonna go into some cadmium yellow, some yellow ochre with a little bit of dark sienna, some Indian yellow, and we just top a little bit of color in here. Now let's come up here and just highlight this using just the corner of the 1-inch brush. And by the time this is your light source, we want highlights from this side and from this side in the other trees. We use very, very little pressure here, and if your paint won't stick, just add the little amount of paint thinner to your brush. I like this small one, and some highlight in here too. Let's go in here. And this is probably one of the easiest paintings to start with. Not a lot to worry. And remember to leave some dark areas in between. And by the time we are on this side, we highlight the trees to the proper side. I added a little bit of bright red to my brush. Let's come to the big one. Big strong tree. Want a little bit brighter up here. Maybe a nice bush leaves in here too. Just wherever you want your bushes to be. And you can use whatever brush you want. For this one, I just decided today that I want to show you some nice things with a 1-inch brush. And remember to paint one bush at a time. And we do not want lots of highlights because we're still far away. Just some highlights, some nice bushes, some grassy areas leave back here. A nice orange one lives here. And you decide what time of the year it is too. I decided that I want to do another autumn scene. You can do this in winter, in spring, in summer, whatever you want. Okay, so it will be wise to reflect some of these into the water. Just add a little bit of color in here. Always remember to match the color of the bushes into the water, into their highlights. And let's take our 2-inch brush. Let me find the one I did the reflection with. Make sure it's dry and we just pull whisper like very, very gently. Pull straight down and very, very gently go across. Okay. Now I'm gonna take my palette knife. I'm gonna scratch some sticks and twigs back here. Separate these a little bit. We let the white canvas show through just by scratching. There you are. Alright, so I'm gonna take some Van Dyke brown and I'm gonna just fill this in with a piece of land to hold all this together. It's very easy to do. And this also decides the lay of the land. We have a roundish lake here today. And the closer we come, the bigger this piece of land is. So we started with less paint here and more in here. Let's come from this side now. And we always pull the paint flat on our palette and we cut off a little roll of paint and make sure we have an even distribution of paint in the edge of the knife. This is really, really very easy to do. Okay. Fill in the gaps. And now I'm gonna come and take some of the titanium white, a little bit of dark sienna to that. And we pull this flat again, leave it marbly, and cut off a little roll like this. So we come in here and whisper lightly, very, very gently, highlight those. No pressure at all. Can you see how this is mixing with the undercolor? Very gently highlight this. These might be rocks and stones holding the land together. And I'm gonna take some of my liquid white, very small amount. Gonna take some of this color to darken it a little bit. We pull this very flat and we just go like this in here. And we have a nice small roll of paint on the upper edge of the knife. We come up here and we just scratch in a nice water line. Just make this as straight as possible. It's very important to make this look right, although I think it's probably the most difficult thing to do, at least for me. But it really takes practice and the right equipment. Whatever you do in this technique has to do with these and with how much you want it. If you really want it, you can do it. You just need to learn, practice, and never give up. It's very, very important not to give up. Even if it doesn't work from the start, just keep trying. Alright, now let's move a bit forward in here, and I'm gonna make some dark color. I want to have some evergreen trees to break the scenery. So I'm gonna take some midnight black in here, some of my Van Dyke brown, black, some Prussian blue, more Van Dyke brown, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and some sub green. Some sub green to that, a little bit more black and blue, a little bit more color, a little bit more color. Mix these thoroughly. And we're using very, very firm and dry paints, as you have noticed. They're very hard. But this is the secret, we really need a very firm and dry paint to make this work. So I'm gonna go into I'm gonna use my number 3 fan brush in here. I'm gonna load this full of paint, full of dark paint, and make some evergreen trees. Most important to have a brush full of paint. You can use the number 6 if you want. You can use number 1. You can use the 1-inch brush, the 2-inch brush. And let's come in here and let's have an evergreen tree right in here. Making the trunk in first. And now just by using the corner of the brush, adding more and more pressure as you go downward. A nice evergreen tree lives in here. And let's make another one. This is good practice. Let's have a bigger one right here. Let's come in here too. We just touch and add more and more pressure as we go downward. Can you see how easy it is? Let's have a third one. Let's have a bigger one here. Why not? And we do the same procedure. And remember to leave some gaps between the branches. You actually do Z movements, like the Z in the alphabet, you know. So, and let's have a little peninsula in here. I'm gonna push upward this time using this brush. Let's have a little piece of land in here. Can you see that we're saving some of the background? This adds depth and interest to the painting. Just push upward, make a little grassy area in here. Okay. Gonna make this a little bit roundish. Now, you know, it would be interesting if we just reflected some of the evergreens into the lake. I'm gonna take the same color, come in here, and let's just reflect that. This time pushing upward. By the time we have the reverse image, there we go. A bigger one in here. The same way we did the evergreens on the ground, the opposite, we reflect them. And at some point we'll do evergreens that will look like Christmas trees. I'm gonna do something different, so we'll do the same here. Okay, now let's build the trunks. I'm gonna take the small knife and the same color that I had or the highlight back here. Now I'm gonna just scratch in and pull to make the tree trunk. A little bit more paint. That easily. And it's very interesting to scratch in some branches with a clean knife. This will add interest, definitely. Alright. And you know, back here, we have to bring this together, you know, I just noticed. So I'm gonna take the same 1-inch brush with some of my paint, the yellows, some bright red. I'm gonna add the least little amount of paint thinner to my brush. I'm sorry for that. And just tap in some nice indications of bushes and grassy areas. We just bring this together. And do the same thing in here too. If the paint won't stick, just add a little bit of paint thinner. Okay. Now let's, you know what, I just want to save some paint and some time. And I want to make some other evergreens too. So I want to come in here and put some evergreens. So I'm gonna make this paint, my dark paint, a pile again. We always work from the pile. Just load the brush full of paint. And let's come in here, make a center line. And these trees are closer to us, so we have to bring them closely. There we are, a nice little evergreen. And let's give him a friend, you know. We don't want him left lonely. And we'll come up here. Lots of paint. Always remember to load the brush as necessary. Load your brush as necessary. Okay. And we can also have a peninsula in here. We actually do the same thing. So we actually push this back. We push the whole scenery back. Fill the scene. And reflect those. So we can come down here. Can you see how easy it is? Sometimes we're afraid to do some such reflections, but this is not true. We shouldn't be afraid. We really can do it. And in here I have less paint than I had earlier. So I'm gonna take my 2-inch brush and let's decide where we want to have our reflection. We pull down, very, very gently. Remove the excess paint, and you can go whisper like again above this. Make the water effect look right, and now very, very gently go across. Can you see how easy it is? And let's do the same thing here. We just pull down, pull straight down. It's very, very important. And then again, very, very gently caress this. And by the time we have the liquid white on This is very easy to do. We wouldn't be able to do this easier than that. That's why we always paint wet and wet. Now I'm gonna take the same brush with some paint thinner and I'm gonna come in here to my cadmium yellow and load the brush full of paint. Gonna add some sub green too. A little bit of sub green, a little bit more of my dark color. This is a nice dirty green color, a nice autumn color for an evergreen, I think. And we do the same thing. Remember where our light source is. I'm gonna highlight this part of the tree in here and this one in here. And we have to put the tree trunks in here too. Take some sienna and some titanium white. And we come in here with a fan brush. Let's make the big one first. And we just gently tap. And let it get darker and darker as we go down. Do the same thing in here. And the same here too. Isn't it nice? And we'll come in here now, on this side. And as you can see, it is darker and darker as you go down. And if your paint won't stick, just add the least little amount of paint thinner. Now let's fill this in with grass, using just the corner of my fan brush here. Just use the corner and fill this in. And by the time this blends with the color that's underneath, it gives us lots of nice shadows. But make sure you do not overmix the same area, otherwise you're gonna you're gonna mix mud, and we do not want that. And do the same to the other side too, using just the corner. If you use the whole brush, you're gonna end with smiley faces reversed upwards, and we do not want that. A little bit more of my yellow. And as you can see, we layer these. We leave some dark areas in between, and we make it look more natural. Okay, now I'm gonna add some land to hold all these. I'm gonna go into some Van Dyke brown. I'm using the number 5 knife, the small knife, and let's rub this. Let's make it a little bit different. Just rub. We always use that little roll of paint on the knife. It's very, very important. A little bit in here too. And we highlight it with just some white and some dark sienna. A small roll of paint as always. And let's come here and very, very gently highlight this. Very, very little pressure. No pressure at all. This is very easy to do. You just need to practice. And make sure you have the firmest possible paint for that, because if you do not have this firm paint, you're gonna end up mixing mud, and we also cannot have these nice highlights. So I'm gonna go into some of my liquid white, very, very small amount, cut off a nice roll, And this time I didn't add any of my dark color. I want it a little bit more distinct by the time we're closer. A nice straight waterline here. As you can see, it's only a matter of practice for everybody. And we come in here too. Just right underneath your dark paint. Alright. And now let's come a little bit forward. I want to have some big trees. Let me find my dark color, my brush with the dark color on, and I'm gonna remove most of this paint from the canvas, from my palette. Let's go into some of my dark sienna. I'm gonna remove my loose paint. Let's take some of the dark sienna, some Van Dyke brown, some midnight black too. Just top this nicely. And let's decide where we want our bushes to be. Just fill this in. Some nice bushes lead in here. Always using the corner of the brush. A nice big bush leaves in here in the middle. Another one here. And you decide how many or how few you want. You also decide what color you're using. I'm just using the sienna, the black, Van Dyke brown. And now in here I don't want to destroy my whole reflection. But we know it's here. It adds a little interest to cover this. Okay, I'm gonna add some darker paint down here. Some straight midnight black probably. And I want to have a big leafy tree in here. I'm gonna take some of my Van Dyke brown, some sienna. Just fill this in, load your brush, and let's come up here. Just make a big tree. And I decided that I want it to be a little bit roundish. Let me add more paint. Give it some character here. Some arms maybe, and you know, we have a branch coming just above the evergreen, but we are not destroying the evergreen, we're just pushing it back. Okay. Now let's have a nice tree trunk. I'm gonna take my filbert brush this time. Right, this is a number 6 filbert. I'm gonna load it with Van Dyke brown. And I'm gonna go into some of my titanium white with a sienna inside and just take some of this. So we have dark color on one side and highlight color on the other side. So we're gonna highlight this tree trunk at once. Let's come up here. Remember where your light source is. And there we go. We have highlight at one go. Let's make another one here. And now you have to decide how many trunks you have, how many branches you have. It's probably looking like a hand, you know. I'm gonna take my liner brush, go into some paint thinner and then some Van Dyke brown. Load this full of paint and have some nice branches. just wherever you want. We're gonna cover most of this anyway. And now I want to have more distinct highlights, so I'm gonna use more paint. You can use either the 1 or the 2-inch brush, so I'm gonna come in here in my yellows, some Indian yellow, some bright red too, lots of paint, and just fill this in nicely. Just tap and push, very important to load the brush properly. And let's come up here and add some nice highlights. And if your paint won't stick, just add the least little amount of paint filler. Just here and there. Always using the corner of the brush. And remember to leave dark areas in between. A little bit in here, and as we go down we want more shadows, so let's come in here and make a nice bush. Always remember to load the brush properly. Let's come in here to this one. And let's start making some bushes. I want to have a big one in here, a little one here, and play through the yellows, add some bright red too, and try to paint one bush at a time. It's very important to layer these. We'll add some cadmium yellow. And in here, remember where your light source is. Let's come in here, make a nice bush. Remember to leave dark areas right in between. I'm gonna come in here. And if your paint won't stick, remember to thin it down. You can also add liquid white. And when this dries, it's gonna give you a very different texture. Very different feeling. So you know what, I think it would be nice to have a nice path in here. So I'm gonna take my fill bed brush again with some Van Dyke brown, and let's say that the path comes from right back here. So let's rub this in. More paint. And it's okay to have this loose paint underneath because we're actually rubbing it off right now. It really doesn't matter. We're using firm Van Dyke brown now. And make this a bit bigger as you move outside the painting. We want to work on the depth. Okay, now we're gonna highlight this. I'm gonna take my palette knife, go into the white, the cream, the Van Dyke brown, the sienna, cut off a small roll of paint, and now very gently, just come above this. And this is probably a nice rocky path. who knows where it leads. Alright, and now we want to push it back. I'm gonna take the same brush, 1-inch brush that I make the foliage with, and if it won't stick, I'm gonna add the little amount of paint thinner. More paint probably. And I'm gonna come up here and push this back. Bring this all together. And you actually push the path back, and you have hardly done the thing. And also remember that you have some trees in here growing and going inside the path. And let's have some more bushes in here. Just here and there. Okay, just fill this in. And I'm gonna take my palette knife, scratching some sticks and twigs. This is very important to add interest and depth in our painting. That easily. And I think we have a finished painting. I really hope I managed to show you something different. I think it's interesting to see how the brushes work, how the color works. And until next time, I'd like to wish you happy painting. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.